Hey everyone, it's Kristin here. I recently had some inspiration to start a new series of videos called Moments of Truth. And the inspiration for these videos came because I know so many amazing people doing amazing things. There's a strength in these people, a perseverance that I see. And I also know a little bit about where these people came from and the experiences they've had. And those experiences have shaped them into who they are today. Just recently, I had my 35th birthday, and I sat down to have a meditation, and a really obvious message came to me that said, you need to do the first episode about you. So each episode I'll be interviewing someone different who has been inspirational and a positive influence in my life. The other reason I want to embark on this series of interviews is that there's something ingrained in our culture here in the United States and Canada where we're all striving for some sort of imaginary perfectionism, and with that striving comes some sort of like deep dishonesty with ourselves and each other. And my life really changed about 5 years ago, and something that became really obvious to me was the need to become more vulnerable and more real with the people in my life. And with that came the need to let go of my striving for perfectionism. My life has just gotten better and better each day, and I still have my challenges, but I feel like I'm being truthful with myself and others. And I think that's something that a lot of people appreciate about me. And so what I hope to show here is that through a little bit of truth and vulnerability, that we can show each other that we all have much more in common than we think we do, or that we pretend that we don't. And, you know, the challenges of life boil down to health, finances, relationships, and, you know, a few large basic categories like that. I've done a lot of things in my life. I've always felt like I was a bit different, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. I felt like the black sheep in my family growing up, often wondering how I could possibly have been born into such a strange family. I never really felt like the education system that I was a part of as a child was serving my highest and best interest. I felt like I was trying to be fit into a mold that I didn't really want to be a part of. I've been able to strip away the layers of kind of training that I feel like I received in my younger years to reveal something that feels much more true to me. And I've been looking for ways to share that truth with the world. And it's come across in various ways. I trained as a professional photographer in the early 2000s after high school. And I then worked for a magazine for several years, a yoga publication, which was a lot of fun. I learned so much through that. I had a job in interior design for some large condo renovation projects in the city of Calgary. And about 2.5 years ago, Tanner and I drove from Vancouver Island to Guatemala. And we decided to take a leap of faith and do something a little bit risky and a little bit different. And that trip changed our lives. It showed us that we could do what felt right for us and not worry about what anyone else thought. What I'm really passionate about right now in my life is connecting with other people who feel like there's another reality just below the surface of the superficial reality that we're all told to just follow the path along. You know, go to school, get a career, choose a career path, have a family, get a mortgage, you know, to just follow that formula laid out before us. And I tried that formula for quite a while, and it just led me further and further down a path where I just lost myself. I didn't know who I was, or, you know, what I believed in, or what I was even here for. And I know I'm not the only one that's gone down that path and wondered how I've gotten here all of a sudden to this place where I don't recognize myself and I don't really know who I am or what my purpose is. What I'm passionate about right now is supporting other people who are questioning where they're at in life. And being a sounding board and a supporter for people to choose differently. A lot of us don't have family or friends who encourage or support us to make these major changes. And that being said, really the work it's something that needs to be done by each one of us, but having a supportive group of people around us is really important in this transitional process. So I'd like to just briefly describe a few of the elements along the path of my life that have probably shaped me to be who I am today. They weren't necessarily fun or easy experiences, but I know without them, I wouldn't be able to share the wisdom and experience that I have in my life today. One of them was growing up in a household that was quite turbulent. I had parents, like many people, who didn't really get along very well. There was a lot of stress and financial strife. Really poor communication a lot of the time, lots of anger and violence, resentment. And I was a really sensitive kid, and I tried to be the perfect one, to never cause any waves, to try to always make everyone happy. And, I was the straight A student, and I just tried to do my best at all times, 110%. When I was finishing my 11th grade year in high school, finally my mind, body, and spirit just crashed, and I just woke up one day and I said to my parents, I can't go to school anymore. And I think everyone thought I was going completely crazy because I was the perfect straight A student, and all of a sudden I didn't want to go to school. I remember going to see my guidance counselor and saying, I can't go to school anymore, but I'd like to finish grade 12 next year. And so one teacher that I had, who was a quirky guy, a science teacher, came forward and said, I'll be your mentor through grade 12. I'll administer your exams and help you with anything that you're stuck on. But otherwise, I homeschooled myself grade 12. And it was lonely in a lot of ways because I felt really separated from my friends, but I also was able to step outside the box of kind of social class and clickiness and pettiness and gossip and competition that was high school and still is high school for a lot of young people. And I felt like I had a bit of a vantage point compared to everyone else. And I started to really awaken to some truths that I knew were hidden in there. I spent the whole year reading like crazy and writing like crazy and just being really creative and learning and really starting to question society and the things that we were all being kind of fed in school. And, I passed grade 12. I got a diploma from high school. And then I continued on that road less traveled, and I didn't go to university. I didn't get a degree. I went to art school. I studied photography. Then I lived at a yoga ashram when I turned 21, and when most Americans turn 21, they're celebrating with drinks and parties, and I was living at a yoga ashram studying yoga and meditation and how to get to know myself better. And so I spent 6 months there, and then I met a man there who was a fair bit older than me, and I ended up moving to Western Canada with him. And so that just sent me off on my first life journey of abandoning all my personal possessions and leaving with a tiny little suitcase and heading across the continent to a new country. And it was all very shocking and very turbulent, a very turbulent experience. But it led me to everything that came after that. So I'm super grateful for that. So the man that I got into a relationship with had been previously married, and he had 2 small boys. And so I became a part-time stepmom, which was pretty fun. His boy's mother was from Colombia, Bogota, Colombia. And so the boys both spoke Spanish, which made me really grateful that I decided to take a year of Spanish in high school. And that was 2004. I moved to Canada in 2008. Their mother died of brain cancer, which wasn't as surprising as it sounds because she had been diagnosed with it years before and had already gone through several rounds of surgery. That being said, it was still really shocking for all of us, and it was quite devastating. And the last thing she said to me before she went into a coma on the telephone from Bogota was, "You're the new mom, so take good care of these kids, they need you." And it still makes me emotional to think of that. It's ingrained in my mind forever. I did my best. I think in 2008, I was 26. And I had just received my permanent residency to remain in Canada indefinitely, and we moved out of the city to a small town to raise the kids outside of the big city in nature. We grew a big garden, we had chickens, we had a beautiful house, we bought a commercial building in town, we opened up our consignment clothing boutique, and it was wildly successful, and it's still there today, and now there's a second location in downtown Calgary. That's where I really started to blossom and step into sort of a role of being a public figure. I set an intention with that building to become a beacon of inspiration, to call in the people who were more spiritual. That community is a very small rural farming community in Alberta where people are quite conservative in general, and I really felt like a fish out of water when I moved there. My partner and I were vegetarians, and there were almost no other vegetarians to be heard of in Alberta, let alone in this small town. And right away we were called the tree huggers in town. And instead of getting upset about that, I remember going online and buying a bumper sticker that had the word tree hugger really huge written across it. And I put it on the back of my Volkswagen. And I decided, well, I'm just gonna, claim that title as the tree hugger in this town, and I'm gonna love it, and I'm gonna make the most of it. And so, one by one, the people in our community and way beyond our community started to hear about us, and they brought their clothing in to put on consignment. But there was so much more happening below the surface. It was like some kind of magical waves were calling in all these incredible people, and I started getting people offering tarot readings and massages and yoga classes, which led me to take courses to be certified in offering Reiki treatments. And I was able to really find my community there. And I was so inspired by so many people in that community. And I know that I left a piece of myself there when I ended up moving away. My partner and I separated after 8 years of a very turbulent and stressful, but also really beautiful life together. I woke up on my own birthday. I was turning 29 in 2011. And I knew the day was coming for a long time, but I just kept avoiding it because it sounded too hard to tackle this step. And I woke up that morning and I said to myself, before I got out of bed, I think this is the day that I need to make this choice to move onward to a different chapter of my life alone. And I asked the universe for a sign that morning, and the sign came in a way that I would have never expected. And the phone rang, and I remember I was blow drying my hair and my phone rang, and it was my dad. And my dad was always the most challenging person in my whole life. But he was the one that helped me to take this step, and he said, he called to wish me happy birthday, which he did every year. And on this day, he said to me something that he's never said before or ever since then. And he said, I just want to know that you're on the path that you want to be on, and that you're happy, and that your life is going in the direction that you hoped it would. And it wasn't. And so I broke out crying, and my dad said, what? What did I say? And I just said, thanks, Dad, I needed to hear that today. I did it. I got up and I walked out into the kitchen and I said, I need to move out. And I did. And for the second time in my life, I left with nothing except my clothing and my yoga mat. I just thought, I have no idea what I'm doing or where I'm going, and I did not abandon my business because it was really important to me, and it was kind of everything I had, and it was where my community was. And so for another year, I ran the business. My partner gave me our car. He said, I need a bigger car anyway, the kids are getting big. This little Jetta won't take us around for much longer, so I took the Jetta with me. I just parted with that Jetta after 14 years of driving that car. I just sold it this spring, and it had a huge collection of bumper stickers, which a lot of you who know us have seen. And it all started with that one tree hugger bumper sticker, kind of exclaiming and owning, yeah, sure, call me a tree hugger, I love that. Yeah, so for that second time in my life, I had nothing, and except a strange amount of faith that everything was going to be okay. I'd say the lowest point in my life came that winter. That was in September of 2011. And I was kind of riding this wave of like, yeah, I made the right choice. I'm moving in the right direction. I'm going to follow my own dreams and try to figure out who I am. And in the deep, dark coldness of an Alberta winter, I definitely hit probably one of the lowest points in my life, where I was alone. And at the time I thought, oh my God, I'm 29 years old. I think I'm going to be alone forever. Financially, I had nothing. I was working my ass off at my store. I was tired, I was stressed out, and I was lonely, and I was depressed. And then I got really sick. I literally lost my voice for probably between 4 and 6 weeks, and it's never been the same since. Something happened. I really felt like I lost my voice on many levels. So I did what I seem to do best, and I branched out and I expanded. I started hosting fashion shows in the community. I started doing fundraisers. I joined a workout group that was an incredible support through that tough time in my life. I made some amazing friends through that workout group. I really miss that. And I got into the best shape I've probably ever been in my life. I found a deep inner strength physically and mentally that I didn't know that I had. Something else that I've done over the years, which I would recommend to just about anyone, is enrolling in some courses or workshops with professional people who are there to help us dig deep into the wounds of our past, the wounds of childhood, the wounds of past relationships, family stuff, intimate relationship challenges. You know, we all carry these samskaras, or these deep wounds, on an energetic, physical, and spiritual level. And if we don't kind of demystify them and learn that they don't have as much power over us as we think they do, and to heal those past challenges and wounds that we all have, you know, if we can humble ourselves enough to go there and to see that, as terrifying as those things can be to explore, on the other side there's a huge amount of freedom and clarity and joy and lightness. And I can speak to a history of abuse and huge financial challenge. I've been there. I've had severe physical ailments and challenges throughout my lifetime. I've dealt with debilitating anxiety for years. I had debilitating anxiety. I was just really good at covering it up and navigating around it, to the point where I couldn't do that anymore and I had to face it head on. I dealt with severe depression, especially in the winters, for many years, through my teens and through most of my 20s. I was on antidepressant medication for, probably when I was 16 or 17 years old, and I quit high school, and my family took me to see all kinds of therapists and psychiatrists and psychologists to try to find out what was wrong with me, and, you know, to try to help me be normal and balanced, and to subscribe to the normal society, which I did not want to. But through being on an antidepressant medication, I can speak to how it kind of neutralized my reality. I was never really that happy or that excited about anything, and I wasn't really super sad or depressed or angry. It kind of just numbed all my emotions, and I became like this really boring person. It was in 2007 or 2008. I can't remember exactly, but I remember the day. I was in my apartment in Calgary, and I was staring at myself in the mirror, just like staring right into my own eyes. And a little voice said to me, "Stop looking for help everywhere else, because you are the only person on earth ever that can make the kind of changes in your own reality that are going to make your life better from here on." So yeah, that was probably about like an 8-year stretch that I was on the same antidepressant medication every day. And so when I had that moment of truth come to me in crystal clear perfection, I went to the psychiatrist that was prescribing my drugs. He was an East Indian doctor in Calgary. And I said to him, I need to get off this prescription. He said, based on what? I said, based on the fact that I want a different life and I'm not happy. And I don't need this drug. I'll be fine. So he, wrote me this protocol of how to get off the drug, and it was a nightmare. I was so ill, I thought I was going to die. I followed the protocol, and again, a voice came to me that said, you know what's best. Get yourself off this drug in whatever way you need to. And they were these little capsules that had these little beads inside. And so instead of following the protocol he gave me, which I thought was probably going to kill me from the withdrawal symptoms, I started opening up the capsule and taking out one bead at a time. There were probably 100 beads inside these capsules. It was like a time release thing. And it took me months to get off the drug, but I did it in a way that wasn't hindering my well-being on a daily basis, and in a way that I never needed to go back to that again. So I met my current partner through his mom, who was a good friend of mine. And we met in the summer of 2012, which was a hugely transformative year for so many people on this planet. When we met, we were both at these major crossroads in our lives where we had this deep yearning for something better. It took us about a year. About our first year together, we were kind of a little unsure of how to embark on this new journey, and we moved up to northern Alberta, which was super challenging for me. That was definitely a transformative time in my life. I felt like there was very little community up there. It was like next level conservative, closed-mindedness. The major industries up there were farming of cattle, canola, and grains, and also oil and gas. There was a huge amount of fracking and drilling, and that was actually the industry that my partner Tanner was working in at the time. He was a truck driver in the oil and gas industry. Like so many of us, he wanted to pay off his debts, and so he got offered this really good job. It paid a lot, but the hours were long, and it didn't take very many weeks or months for me to say to myself, oh my God, this is not working. This is not sustainable. We thought we'd commit to a year up there, but I could see easily that I'd barely make it through 6 months. And so his mom said to me, why don't you start a blog? And I said, no one's going to want to read my blog. I don't have anything special to say. And she said, well, what if you do it for yourself and don't worry about what anyone else thinks? And I thought, yeah, okay, maybe I'll consider it. And it didn't take me too long to finally have a day where I felt so utterly lost and just sad. I felt this deep state of despair. I just felt like the world was collapsing and I was all alone. And so I took out my cell phone and I downloaded the Blogger app on my cell phone. And that was in 2013. And I still write the blog, and it has nearly 16,000 views. And I receive messages from people regularly thanking me for being so honest and open and vulnerable in my blogs. And honestly, I still write the blogs for me because they're an incredible form of just therapeutic creativity and channeling of, information and observations and inspirations that I receive. And it's like a fun bonus that they can inspire anyone else. So I have this memory, and I've told this story a few times lately, of probably about 6 or 8 months after my long-term partner and I separated, and I was renting a room in a house with several roommates, and it was a beautiful sunny day, a lot like this one. It was like May, probably. It was spring. The flowers were blooming, the birds were chirping, it was sunny and warm, and I was bawling my eyes out, and I felt so lost. I don't think I ever felt so lost in my life as I did that day. And I called one of my good friends who lived in the community there, and I remember closing my eyes and sitting on the front steps of the house I was living in and listening to the birds and feeling the sunshine and the breeze and crying and crying and crying. And I said to her, I feel like I'm standing in the doorway of the universe, and it's wide open, and I can see the entire universe right now, and everything is possible, and anything is possible, and I'm terrified. And I just kept bawling my eyes out. And then she burst out laughing on the other end of the phone. And then I got angry and I was like, why are you laughing at me right now? That is not what I need. And she said, I'm laughing because I love you and I know that you're going to be fine. And that was a huge moment for me. And I don't know if I've ever actually told her that. But if she's listening to this, I think she'll remember that moment too. And I'm so grateful for friends like her who didn't pat me on the back and say, oh, poor Kristin, you're going to be okay. No, instead she laughed at me and laughed at my deep, deep fears of feeling lost in a wide open universe of possibilities. And how comical that really is, because I've come to that crossroads quite a few other times since then, and I've been able to look at it with a sense of deep humor and, you know, a greater sense of a cosmic consciousness that, you know, it's a gift to feel like everything and anything is possible as long as we're open to it. So the thing that's currently inspiring to me the most is humanity. And there are moments where I also feel extremely dismayed by humanity. But in my moments of clarity and inspiration and optimism, I am reminded every day by various people in my life who want to share their story, who feel comfortable sharing with me, who, you know, ask me for encouragement or support, maybe not in those exact words, but I've been able to, through all of my experiences and all of my turbulence and chaos and challenges in the last 35 years, I've been able to come to a place in myself where I'm comfortable with who I am, and I'm not afraid of what others think of me, and I'm able to speak to people in a way that's true and honest and vulnerable, and I try to be compassionate, but not too sympathetic, because I think it's really important for people to know that we all have the same types of challenges, and they come in a million colors, but at the end of the day, you know, we're all humans. We're all here in these human bodies, and, you know, we're all striving for the same things. And I think it's really important for people to be reminded of that. I need reminders. What really inspires me is seeing others embracing their unique challenges and moving through them and beyond them to the other side, where then they're able to show people, like, you know, this is where I was, and I choose now to be here. And something else that inspires me is seeing people facing their fears, you know, and growing beyond their fears. And I've seen that a lot in the last few months. So I'm just going to close with a final few pieces of inspiration and wisdom that have come to me lately. And one of them is just stop caring what other people think. It's so huge. It's so liberating. I feel so much freedom in my life, you know, not caring what other people think of my hair, not caring what other people think of the car that I drive that has a cracked windshield right now, you know, not caring what other people think if I buy my clothes at Salvation Army, you know, for $3, or not caring what people think of me about to embark on another 6-month journey to Mexico. You know, there were just 2 earthquakes there. People are going, why are you going there? You know, it's an earthquake zone. Well, you know, you could say that about anywhere on the planet. There's earthquakes, there's tornadoes, there are volcanoes, there are tsunamis, you know, there are unlimited numbers of things that could happen to all of us, but to not dwell on the scary things and the negative things, and at the same time, you know, don't live in a space of ignorance. So it's important to be aware of our surroundings, and also to be open to the inspiration and the incredible possibilities that are awaiting all of us if we're just able to surrender into the flow of life and be carried in the direction of our dreams and our greatest inspiration. I hope you enjoyed listening to this. I hope you know a little bit about me now that maybe you didn't know before. I hope that I can inspire others to continue to be vulnerable with their friends and family and with strangers. And, the more that we share from our hearts and the more that we're able to be vulnerable and honest and truthful, the less strange the world will be. Because strangers are only strange and foreign until we open up our hearts and make eye contact and smile. Oh, last thing, my blog is, it's called One World Wellness, 2 People, 1 Love, Infinite Possibilities. And if you were interested in the things I just shared on this video, I think you'd really enjoy the blog. I get nothing for having people read my blog. I don't even know who reads my blog most of the time, except for the few people that actually reach out to say thank you. And a lot of times the comments are anonymous, so I have no idea who they are. But I watch the ticker keep going up in numbers, and I just keep on posting my blogs. I just wrote one this morning, sitting in the sunshine, sipping a cup of coffee, so I look forward to sharing that. This has been Kristin sharing some moments of truth, and I look forward to hearing yours. Have a beautiful day.